Well, all right, welcome back to the As It Should Be podcast YouTube channel. Paul Berlino here, and well, you know, thank you to everybody who's been subscribing. When I'm at, as of the recording of this video, I have what, 53 subscribers. Thank you, everybody who subscribes, everybody who comments, everybody who likes. I really appreciate it because it's really helpful, and you know, it helps me to it helps the videos to get out to people so they can see them. Because if people don't subscribe, if people don't like or comment, then YouTube doesn't know that anybody wants to see the videos. So thank you to those who've been doing that, and I encourage you to keep on doing that. And well, it's time again for another track versus track video. And as always, shout out to Ralph Vieira, Dr. Fuck from the Almost Human YouTube channel, who originated the idea and gave me his blessing to steal it. And well, this time I'm going to be putting two super classic albums together, two undeniably amazing rock and roll records that anybody who loves really just great, catchy, guitar-driven, sometimes rather quirky rock and roll will love these albums and loves this band. Yeah, I'm going to be putting the first two albums of the great Cheap Trick up against one another. That's right, the self-titled debut up against Cheap Trick in color. And you know, I really wish that I could hold up the actual albums to show you guys. That's the thing about these videos, is that really absolutely every single album that I'm discussing, that I'm even mentioning in any of these videos, I absolutely have vinyl copies of every one of them. But the lion's share of my record collection is not here. It's at my mom's house. Yeah, I mean, I just live in a little Brooklyn apartment, and if I had all my records here, I would have to have an extra bedroom, and you know, I just can't do that. So the records you see back there, that's the new arrivals bin. Now, so all that goes to say that I really wanted to hold up the two Cheap Trick albums. I even considered like going to a record store and trying to find the first, because I have a vinyl copy. I actually have a really beautiful shrink wrap from Corvette's department store there, copy of In Color, but I don't have a copy of the first album here, so I actually considered going to a record store and looking through the dollar bin to try to find a cheapo one, just so I could hold it up in this video, but forget about it. So, anyway, let's start the battle, okay? So let me bring up the tracks here, and I've decided from now on I'm always going to wear my glasses for track versus track, because it's just so much easier. So I'm doing this in my Clark Kent persona. Okay, so, oh, and before I forget, I've got to get ready to keep tally here. Cheap Trick. In Color. Alright. Let's see how this goes. Both these albums are so good. This is going to be a Clash of the Titans. Okay, so the opening track. Oh, by the way, I should point out that I'm going to do, as far as the running order of the first album, I'm doing the original intended order that's on the more recent CD issues, where Hello Kitties is the opening track rather than Hot Love, because the album works so much better that way for me personally, and that's the way the band intended it. So that's how I'm doing it. So track number 1 on the first album is Hello Kitties, and that's going up, I mean, we all know what that's going up against. Hello There from In Color. I love Hello Kitties. In fact, I'll tell you right now, the very first Cheap Trick album is by far my favorite Cheap Trick album. I love every track on that record. But dude, Hello There? Come on. In Color gets that one by a mile. Okay, so number 2. Track number 2, Daddy Should Have Stayed in High School. And that is going up against Big Eyes from In Color. You know, that's a little tough. That's a little tough. But I'm going to go with Daddy Should Have Stayed in High School. Big Eyes I'd like a lot, but I'm not as heavily into that as I am some of the songs. It's not one of the absolute highlight tracks for me. So track 3 on the first album is Taxman Mr. Thief. Whew. one of my very, very favorites. And that is up against... Oh! Oh! That is up against Down from In Color. Oh! Oh, man. This is going to be rough. Well, actually, you know what? I do know which one I'm going to choose, but it's rough because those are two of my very... I mean, honestly, Taxman Mr. Thief may be my very favorite song from the first album, and Downed is not only my very favorite song on In Color, but honestly, I think it's my very favorite Cheap Trick song, period. Therefore, Downed gets that. Man, ooh. Could that be any more hardcore? Jesus. Okay, so track number 4 on the first album, Cry Cry. Great track. Versus I Want You to Want Me. The universally maligned studio version of I Want You to Want Me. Now the thing about this studio version of I Want You to Want Me, I mean, obviously the live version wipes the floor with it, right? But when I first listened to the studio version, I thought, what the hell is going on here? What are they doing? And then I realized, you know what? I think when they originally did this track, I think they envisioned it like a 60s Kinks track, because that's kind of how it sounds. And I can kind of understand the thinking there, but in the end, I mean, you know, once you've tasted blood with the live version, you can't go back. I mean, that studio version just doesn't cut it. So, yeah, I mean, the first album gets that, Cry Cry. All right, well, it's tied so far. Okay, so track number 5 on the first album is Oh Candy. Man, what a great track that is, and that's versus You're All Talk on In Color. Sorry guys, no contest. Oh Candy gets that. I don't even have to think about that for a second. You're All Talk is probably one of my least favorite tracks on In Color. So now we're turning both records over, and we're going to track 1 on side 2 of the first album, which is Hot Love. And Hot Love is going up against, on side 2 of In Color, Oh Caroline. And that, I'm gonna stick with me here for a minute while I think things over. Hot Love versus Oh Caroline. You know what? In Color gets that. I'm going with Oh Caroline. Hot Love is great. Hot Love is just like a great hard rocking track, and just total balls out Cheap Trick. But Oh Caroline is just irresistible. I gotta go with that. Okay, so track 2 on side 2 of the first album is Speak Now or Forever Hold Your Peace. The very opening of the great Over the Edge film. Over the Edge, one of the greatest films of all time. Lots of cheap Trick tracks in the soundtrack. The very opening scene, the first thing you hear is the opening notes of this song. Love it. And that goes up against Clock Strikes 10 from In Color. Now, here, one second. Let me do a little adjustment here. Yeah, so Speak Now goes up against Clock Strikes 10. And you know what? That's actually kind of easy. I'm going with Speak Now from the first album. Clock Strikes 10 is a good track, but it's a little bit of a generic rock and roll track. I mean, it isn't really a standout, in my opinion. And that's the thing. I prefer the first album over In Color because I feel like the first album is more consistent. Like, the entire first album is just, I don't feel like, I almost don't think there's any lesser tracks on that record. It's just the whole thing is consistent in quality. Whereas In Color kind of goes up and down for me. The highs on In Color are even higher than the first album, but In Color just rolls along exactly as great from track to track. Just, but yeah. So track number 3 on side 2 of the first album is He's a Whore. And definitely one of the better tracks on that album versus Southern Girls from In Color. first album, I'm going with He's a Whore. And, yeah, ooh. Okay. Now the next track, track number 4 on side 2 of the first album, is Mandocello. Ooh, man, that is another one of the greatest Cheap Trick tracks. And that goes up against, what does that go up against? It goes up against, oh, that goes up against Come On, Come On from In Color. Come On, Come On is one of my favorite tracks on In Color, but you know what? Mandocello. There are very few tracks that could win over Mandocello. So, that's an easy one. Okay, so the final track, the closing track on the first album, The Ballad of TV Violence, and that goes up against So Good to See You. Right? Yeah, up against So Good to See You. So Good to See You is definitely one of my very, very favorite tracks on In Color. And Ballad of TV Violence, that's a great epic closer, but you know what? I'm giving that to In Color. So Good to See You by a mile. So, okay, so let's tally this up. Cheap Trick, the first album, gets 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and In Color got 4. So yeah, the first album wins. I suspected it might, but you never know how it might go. Yeah, well anyway, so thank you again for watching these videos. Thank you for subscribing. Thank you for commenting and liking and all that great stuff. And I really appreciate it. And keep doing it. And again, shout out to Ralph. Thank you. And I'll see you in the next video.